The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy was canceled almost 20 years ago, and 20 years later, I'm still talking about this show, and I'm clearly not the only one. Jordan Fringe, Rebel Taxi, me, again, about the cancellation. You get the picture. I love this show. Sue me. And Billy and Mandy is one of the most beloved shows of all time, so it was bound to have some absolute bangers. But before we get into it, here's a fun little fact. The show has had 5 reruns between 2007 and as recent as February 12th, 2026 over on Adult Swim, which is great, except it makes the situation a whole lot sadder because aside from those reruns, the show is just so hard to watch in order from official sources anyway. And we'll get into it more as we go through each season, but if you want to watch season 1 on DVD, you gotta fork over anywhere from $80 to $300, and that's on the low end. Hell, if you're in the UK, they want your firstborn son. So yeah, even if you're willing to fork over the money for season 1, that's all you get. Season 1. No 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Now, sure, you can spend the next few days of your life scrubbing eBay for the Halloween specials, the bundles, but they're stupid expensive too, and they hardly cover 5 seasons worth of the show. So you can do what I did and buy a digital version on Apple TV, which does not include the Christmas special, by the way, because it was banned due to music licensing in various spots. An episode I also talked about here on the channel. I think I might have a little bit of an obsession, but you get the picture. The point is, it's on DVD, so if you want to spend $50 to get it, you can, or you can just hop on that Going Merry and set sale, if you know what I mean. Anyways, let's dive into the highest rated episodes of The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and to make things as clear as possible, I am referring to the episodes by name, since with the show originally releasing as The Grim and Evil Show, the episodes can be pretty jumbled. So to make it as simple as possible, I'll be using the Apple TV watch order, just because that seems to be the most reliable way to get this show in full. Legally, of course. Do we understand one another? Awesome. Let's do this.
Now it's The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Then it's even more of The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. This is Cartoon Network.
The first episode up is Toad Blat's School of Sorcery, released June 13th, 2003, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a 3-segment episode rated with an 8.0. And we open with
the first day of summer. Isn't it glorious?
Goodbye, school. Hello, summer camp. Hello, sleeping in till 11. Hello, eating cereal directly out of the box on the couch in your underwear. But Billy and Mandy are not getting any of that. No, their parents are shipping them off because this is the early 2000s and parents were able to afford to ship their kids off at this point. Now, I'll give you guys a second to guess where Billy's going. And if you guess math camp, ding, ding, ding. Also, can you type this week's lottery numbers in the comments while you're on a hot streak? Thanks, bro. As for Mandy, well, she's off to camp that teaches kids to be the literal opposite of who she is. Sunshine, lollipop, rainbows. Basically, it's a camp that was made for Mabel from Gravity Falls and not Mandy from Billy and Mandy. Basically, it's their personal version of hell, is what I'm trying to get at. And thank God they've got the Grim Reaper as a best friend, because Grim comes up with a solution. Instead of camp, they get to go to a magical summer school with a name so stupidly long it has to be capitalized. Toad Blat's Summer School of Sorcery. Yeah, this is a Harry Potter parody. I don't think I need to spell that out for you guys, but I'm gonna do it anyways. The kids then get sorted into houses, just like Hogwarts. Billy and Mandy land at a house called Weaselthorpe, and let's be honest, is a way better name than anything J.K. Rowling cooked up. And instead of his top hat doing the sorting, it's a talking squid.
I'll tell you where you can go.
And here's the part that genuinely melted my brain when I first found out. That squid is voiced by Weird Al Yankovic.
Think I'm just too white and nerdy.
Yeah. Mr. White and Nerdy himself, voicing a sorting squid in a Cartoon Network show about a little girl who enslaved death. Cartoons in the 2000s were undefeated, bro. Then we meet our guy, Nigel Planter. Round glasses, messy hair, tragic backstory, the whole package. Even his goofy little scar, which I still stand by that Harry Potter should have had a big-ass scar going across his face. Most powerful wizard in the planet, my ass. Give him a little lightning bolt. I'm still mad about it. But at least here, we don't have a derpy little lightning bolt scar, okay? It's not a lightning bolt. It's an L, which, yes, fan theories say stands for loser, and I'm inclined to agree because Nigel is, in fact, a loser, and that's at least cooler than, you know, old teeny lightning bolt. I'm talking a lot of shit about Harry Potter. I'm sorry. Let's continue. Anyways, Nigel's mission is to win the House Cup for Weaselthorpe, who never win because Dean Toadblat is obsessed with the rival house, Gunderstank, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be Gryffindor. Maybe. Don't quote me. I think so. They both start with a G. Nigel teams up with Billy and Mandy to sabotage Gunderstank into oblivion, stealing Toad Blat's prize Cumulon 6 broomstick, releasing a Gunderstank branded dragon to wreck the school. A lot of stuff, the whole 9 yards. And it works. Weaselthorpe wins. There's just one problem. Nigel decides he's gonna take all the credit. Screw Mandy. And, you know, even though Mandy did 99% of the actual brain work, because, you know, Billy's unconscious for half of every episode. And then this little wand twirling weirdo decides he's gonna try and shove his tongue down Mandy's throat at the celebration party.
Wanna know what it feels like to kiss a great man like me?
Somebody come get your boy Nigel. Now, if you've watched even 1 second of this show, you know that is the dumbest thing a human being could possibly attempt in this universe. Mandy doesn't even slap him. She doesn't have to. She just calmly tricks him into confessing the entire sabotage operation in front of Toad Blat and the whole party. Queen behavior, no notes. That's how you take him down. Now, Nigel thinks he's getting expelled, going home in shame, and no, his fate is obviously much worse than that. This episode is a certified classic, and one of the reasons it slaps so hard is because of all of the tiny little Easter eggs crammed into it. It's just blink and you miss it type details. But there's a kid at the school who looks suspiciously like a young General Scar, and Adams loved cross-pollinating his shows, so that kind of makes sense. Thank you. Appreciate you. And don't worry, this isn't the last we see of Nigel Planter. You'll have to wait for future installments for that, because eventually he who shall not be named appears. For real. He's coming. So we're in the same episode block, but the next segment is Educating Grim, where Billy and Mandy decide it would be a fantastic idea to drag Grim to school with them. And obviously, as the Grim Reaper, he does not want to go to elementary school or middle school or whatever school they're in. I think it's elementary school. But look on the bright side, Grim. You can brush up on your Spanish, learn about history, or you can become friends with Mandy's nemesis, Mindy, which is exactly what happens, because of course that's what happens. And for all of Mandy's faults, you know, the whole enslaving thing, she is loyal to the people she cares about. And at least from what we can gather, it seems like she cares about Grim. And, you know, by like, soul contract, whatever, it counts as his best friend. He's her best friend. So when Mindy pops out of nowhere and steals him, Mandy is fuming. And Grim doesn't waste any time settling into the cool girl aesthetic. Meanwhile, in the universe, Abraham Lincoln is just alive, and, you know, he's at Billy's and Mandy's school. They're homies. Sick. He's an immortal god. Don't ask, just go with it, and we'll see more of him from time to time. Yeah, Honest Abe is cool and all, you know? Especially this Honest Abe. But he's not the Grim Reaper. So Mandy tries to warn Grim that Mindy is bad news. She's a blabbermouth on steroids. And you think Billy's bad? Get a load of Mindy, dude. Mandy, being Mandy, just lays it out flat. Tells her to shut up.
Shut up. She didn't take it well.
Cementing that good old-fashioned rivalry for the rest of the show. But she still has to get her best friend back. So Mandy hatches a plan. Use Honest Abe as bait. If Mindy sees that Mandy's hanging out with the 16th president of the United States, she'll forget all about Grim. 8-year-old logic, baby, but the show is built on it. And because of that, the plan obviously works. Grim gets kicked to the curb. The trio's back together, almost. Not without a little punishment for Grim first, obviously. And then we move on to the third and final segment. It's Pokemon. Now, we've covered one big franchise parody already, but time for another. Pokemon, you get the idea. The point is, one of the highest rated episodes, we got 2. I think people might just like to see other media appear in parody form. We don't get enough of that anymore, I feel like. Billy and Erwin are in the middle of a trading card showdown, and let's just say, it looks like Pokemon. You know, it's not, they knew what they were doing. Not the bulbous blobbaguts. So now that I'm looking at it, I think this might actually be a parody of 2 franchises. Now, the name's clearly a jab at Pokemon, but the card game aspect seems to be doing a whole Yu-Gi-Oh thing, which was also huge at the time. So, hit 2 birds with 1 stone, you know? Anyways, the boys love it. Maybe a little too much, because their game escalates into a full screaming match where they're beating the shit out of each other, and that obviously gets Grim's attention. He sees the cards, likes the designs, probably because they all have crazy, disgusting names, and he uses his powers to bring one of them to life. Predictably, Billy and Erwin lose their minds, beg him to do it for the rest of the deck, and Grim says, sure, just don't show anyone. They show everyone. They then get into a duel with another kid, wipe the floor with him, but the monsters start eating the other kid's cards. The boys then race home with an angry mob right behind them, and to defuse it, Grim agrees to bring everyone's cards to life. Because what could possibly go wrong there, right?
After all, what harm could there be?
Now, Mandy is just coloring. She's just hanging out, vibing. She looks out her window, sees a giant Pokemon causing chaos, and proceeds to draw her own monster. She marches that card right over to Grim with one specific instruction.
Makes toast out of all the other monsters.
And let's be real, that thing looks like Salad Fingers had a stroke. And it goes to town on the others. Now, to think that we get 3 of those stories in one singular episode, the fan favorite status makes complete sense to me. The design on each Pokemon is genuinely cool. It's basically Nightmare Pokemon, or if, I don't know, Monsters Inc. had a trading card game.
Coming up next, it's the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy.
Now on to the next episode, Night of the Living Grim. Episode 2 aired June 20th, 2003, rated an 8.1. Just a smidge higher than the last one. And this one opens with Billy mid-game on his favorite video game, Attack of the Non-Edible Green Slime. The fact that they had to specify non-edible makes me think someone somewhere tried to eat that goop. Now while he's playing, an actual blob of green slime starts floating in front of him. But that slime ain't slime, yo. It's snot or boogers, and I'm not making this up, nose juice. Specifically Grim's nose juice. Because the bag of bones is bedridden sick. And being supernatural, his mucus is potent. Like, turn into a monster, gotta vacuum it up, kind of potent. Come on, we've all had that, right? Where your boogers come to life? While Billy's on slime duty, Mandy flips through Grim's books to figure out what's wrong with him. Because the Grim Reaper doesn't catch a regular cold. It turns out Grim has something called encroaching doom syndrome. Just routine stuff, you know, just basic checkup. You just gotta take a quick trip to the Underworld Hospital and it'll be fine. But Grim refuses for some reason. He would rather just ride it out like a traditional millennial man. Only go if you're dying. Healthcare's too expensive. So I get where you're coming from, Grim. But Billy and Mandy, they're dealing with floating snot orbs, so Mandy drags him in. Now in the waiting room, every other patient looks way worse than Grim. But the second they hear encroaching doom syndrome, they bolt out of there like he's sneezing in early 2020. Or now, with that new virus. Moving on. The doctors rush him into surgery. There's nothing they can do. It turns out Grim is alive. Yeah, encroaching doom syndrome is a countdown to become alive. And boy, does Grim look funky with skin on him. Pot belly, everything. Which, to be fair, is pretty on brand. The guy eats just a lot of crap. Mandy renames him France to cover up the whole former Grim Reaper situation. And for a bit, France is having a great time. All the ladies find him attractive. Love the skin you're in. Until the boyfriends and husbands of those show up with guns, bats, and try to kill you. Now, you guys remember that slime monster from earlier? Well, Billy didn't do a good job vacuuming it up because Billy doesn't do a good job at anything. And while Grim is mid-monologue about hating his new body, he gets eaten. But don't worry, he's not dead. Well, he is. He's back to normal. No more pot belly. No more babes chasing him all over the place. But welcome home, King. And now we get to probably one of the most memorable episodes in the entire series. It's still part of the same segment. This one's actually a two-parter. So we got a triple-part episode, but this is a two-parter of that triple-parter. It's called Brown Evil. Same episode block, the Brown Evil Saga. And we open on Billy gaming again, but this time he's playing Pat the Baker. And Mandy, who could not tolerate his slime game, is obviously fully not having Pat the Baker either. So she rips him out, slams in something just a little bit more her speed. President Evil, starring Haas Delgado. And that is unsurprisingly a parody of Resident Evil. And Haas Delgado himself is very clearly a parody of Ash Williams from The Evil Dead. And Snake Plissken from Escape from New York, if you want to get really nerdy. Hey, Sean, do you know who Snake Plissken is? Yeah. He knows. See? He's a nerd. Either way, it's zombie killing time. Billy watches Mandy play a few rounds and decides naturally to bake some brownies. You like Pat the Baker? Just bake yourself. It's the same thing, but real. And, you know, it doesn't go that great. Now, while he's baking, he goes and digs through Grim's stuff because he's out of salt. And what better way to find salt than to dig through the Grim Reaper's evil trunk of death? So he finds a little bottle. It's labeled evil powder. Billy can't read. I think you understand where we're going here. He dumps the entire vial into these brownies. And to every human on Earth, these brownies smell disgusting. To the Grim Reaper, they smell incredible. He gets told to throw them out. He can't resist. They're delicious. They smell good. He decides to not listen to Mandy. And the problem is there are other things on this earth that are not humans, or at least they're not humans anymore. Those brownies, or at least the scent of those brownies, start waking the dead. The undead start roaming Ennsville looking for the brownies. And it brings them right to Billy's front door. Realizing they're surrounded by the zombies, the gang figures the safest move is to send Billy out with the brownies. Because, and this is actual logic from the show, by the way, if they catch him, he's so stupid he doesn't have a brain, so they're just not gonna hurt him. Sometimes it pays off to be stupid. Now the zombies corner him, he's got a stick, and part 1 ends. But part 2 comes right after, and we jump right back to where we're at. From here, the newscast tells us the smell is spread across the globe, and everything that was once alive has risen from the dead, and they're all going somewhere. Billy manages to get saved, luckily at the last second, by the coolest of cool zombie hunters, Haas Delgado in the flesh. And they say he rules with an iron fist, or a chainsaw, or whatever he decides to put on his hand at that moment. He saves Billy, makes mincemeat out of the zombies, and storms inside to find the source of the smell. And the brownies are not in the trash, because Greedy Grim hid them inside his noggin. Haas is furious. Cue the showdown. Chainsaw hand, scythe, swinging through the kitchen. They're beating the crap out of each other. It's like the final boss of every action movie. Very Evil Dead meets Final Destination. Or it's just a Star Wars parody ripoff, which I think it might be, but we don't have proof of that. It just very much looks like it. Grim, because he's Grim, manages to chop Haas's mechanical hand off, but while he's celebrating, Haas just winds up his regular hand and just knocks Grim the out, knocks his head right off his shoulders, right through the window, right into a horde of zombies. I mean, hey man, he's been dead a long time. You find some brownies that make you feel a little certain way and make you feel pretty good, I wouldn't be throwing those brownies out either.
Good evening, and welcome to Shocktober on Cartoon Network. Tonight, we feature the hilarious yet haunting grim adventures of Billy and Mandy. Be sure to watch every night this month for more of Shocktober, only on Cartoon Network.
It's actually insane how stacked this season was. Who Killed Who is up next. Episode 12, the penultimate episode, aided an 8.2, another 0.1 higher, the highest rated one so far. And this one opens on a game. Again, it seems to be a very common trend here, but a board game this time, so it's different. Who Killed Who, which for the board game crowd is a spoof of Clue, murder mystery. You know it, probably. I don't know. Mandy wants in. That's the point. Billy and Irwin are not going to let her play because obviously girls aren't allowed to play games, I guess, in the early 2000s. So she's pissed off, obviously. Now, while the boys are playing, they accidentally chuck their dice into the backyard of this spooky haunted house down the street. Grim warns them that the house is haunted by the ghost of the old owner, Mrs. Doolin. And the boys are terrified to go in, so in the boldest move of the episode, they dare Mandy to do it. Now, I know Billy isn't the sharpest tool in the box, but even he should know Mandy doesn't get scared. Mandy ain't no Mandy just walks right in. Immediately gets greeted by a creepy silhouette of an old woman who happens to be holding the dice, and Mandy is just not phased for good reason. It turns out Mrs. Doolin is not a ghost. She's actually alive and very sweet. All the stories about her are stuff that Grimm seems to made up because she beat him in a staring contest. Mandy actually has a unironically great time. They fence, they chat, they bond, and she figures that she can use this to mess with Billy, so she stays inside. Lets Billy come looking for her, and when she does, she and Doolin pretend to be ghosts and scare the absolute hell out of him. Billy runs for his life in panic, but when Mandy turns back to look at the house she spent the entire afternoon in, it doesn't look the same. It's old, it's run down, it's abandoned. Mrs. Doolin is nowhere to be found. Doolin was a ghost, just not in the usual sense, because when she said she beat Grimm, she didn't mean a staring contest, or maybe she did that, I don't know. But what she really meant was she beat death, and he blinked first. Now, this episode probably could have been a whole movie if they fleshed it out more. The twist got me as a kid, and it still gets me now. And, oh yeah, Mrs. Doolin was voiced by the late, the great Betty f***ing White, and the actual Betty White, not the Betty White that was in Aliens in the Attic. I think the best part about all this is that the very first time we meet Grimm in the series, he tells Billy and Mandy that he never loses games. And here's old Doolin having smoked him at every single thing they ever played. Serves you right for betting your soul when you suck that bad at games, Grimm. Get your shit together, dude. Finally, we're up to another episode, Tween Wolf, but this time the same block, second segment. This is only a 2-segment parter, not a 3-1. It's episode 12. Let's do this. We open on Grimm trying to do a bit of supernatural magic. He's got powers. He is not, however, a magician. He fails to pull a werewolf out of his hat, and in frustration, he just yeets the hat outside. It lands under a streetlight, and Irwin manages to find it. Erwin can't resist a hat. He picks it up, the werewolf pops out, bites him, and that bite transfers the curse. And the second moonlight hits Erwin, he transforms into a werewolf. Or more accurately, Scooby-Doo. Don't worry, under direct moonlight, he looks a little bit more fierce. But when Billy takes him home as a pet, he absolutely belongs in the mystery machine. Billy gets permission from his dad and he adopts his new dog, Sprinkles. And to his credit, Billy is a pretty good dog dad, which we'll get into it, but Billy is not a good dad. He is in this episode, though. He even takes him on walks. There's plenty of people that don't do that for their dogs. He bumps into Mandy at the park, and Mandy has her own dog, Saliva, and Sprinkles is not a fan of Saliva. Mandy, obviously, because she's not an idiot, clocks the situation immediately, and she knows this is not a great day.
That's a werewolf, you chimp.
So she goes to get Grim for help, and not to remove the curse, that would be too easy, obviously. No, she needs Grim to help her win the upcoming Ennsville Dog Show. So they wait. They wait through every single category, and right when it's time, Grim slips Mandy a wereflea. One bite, curse broken. Erwin reverts back to his human form, buck-ass naked. And do you see this crowd? They're just taking pictures of this naked little boy. That's crazy. What's even crazier is Billy and Erwin still somehow win the contest. And I know Grim is in serious hot water with Mandy because of it, but that's it. That's where we leave it. That is season 1. And honestly, that is a very, very strong first season of very memorable and highly rated episodes. And I know that these are not the first episodes. I know that, you know, Meet the Reaper is obviously episode 1, but that was part of Grim and Evil. This is technically like the first Billy and Mandy season, and they came out swinging. So the ball is rolling really nicely heading into season 2. We've already had bangers, Easter eggs, a Harry Potter parody, an Evil Dead parody, a Pokemon parody, a Resident Evil parody, a Clue parody, and Betty fucking White. We're 12 episodes into the show, and it's already done more in one season than most cartoons do in their entire run. But believe me, there is much better stuff coming on the way. Season 2 is where it actually started cooking. Mythology references, horror references, pop culture parodies stacked on top of pop culture parodies. The writing room basically clocked that the execs at Cartoon Network would pretty much let them do whatever they wanted as long as it wasn't too gross. And we already covered how that went down last time. So they just started smuggling Stanley Kubrick, John Carpenter, Friday the 13th, Dragon Ball Z, a Rankin Bass Christmas special, Hamlet, into a Saturday morning cartoon for kids. God, I love this show. And there are 11 of these in season 2, so settle in, maybe grab a snack. Let's do this. We kick the season off with Son of Nergal, season 2, episode 2, a 3-segment episode rated with an 8.0. And before we get into this one, I gotta introduce you to a guy. This is Nergal. I know. He's one of the more interesting characters in the series. He's a lonely, immortal, evil being from the literal center of the earth, and he's got these snake-like tentacle arm thingies that just grow out of his back and electrocute you. He's a pretty normal dude, as you can see. What you might not know is Nergal's actually based on a Mesopotamian god of the same name. The real Nergal was worshipped as the god of war, plague, and the underworld. And 2 out of 3 ain't bad. What's crazy is Show Nergal is somehow an objectively cooler version. He winds up marrying Billy's aunt Sis, and they have a son together because Sis was as lonely as Nergal, and let's be real, beggars can't be choosers. You gotta go with what you got. You find love, you find love. And that son, he is the focus of this episode. His name is Junior, and let's just say the apple did not fall far from the tree. So the episode kicks off with Nergal and Sis shipping Junior off to winter camp called Camp Paradise, which was set up by Harold and Grim. Creative name, boys. Hope it lives up to it. Junior's terrified about fitting in. I mean, look at him. Can you blame him? And he rocks up before any of the other kids do and instantly gets singled out by some local kid, which is a massive mistake because Junior does what any reasonable child of a supernatural Mesopotamian god would do. He attacks the kid and possesses his body. Welcome to camp. Now, quick aside on this episode, the camp counselor's name is John Jack Daniel Torrance. The whiskey nod, pretty obvious, but the Jack Torrance part, that's Jack Torrance from The Shining.
Here's Johnny.
Stanley Kubrick's reference in a Cartoon Network show called Billy and Mandy, and we're just 3 minutes in. When the rest of the kids finally show up, they get herded into this freezing barn where the pillows and bed sheets are literally made of ice. And for a kid who grew up in the molten core of the earth, It's basically torture. So Junior does what he does best. He takes over the body of the camp counselor, the strict, no-nonsense guy, and sets up shop in his nice, warm cabin instead. And honestly, I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I would kill the camp counselor too and take it. Yo, you're giving us sheets of ice? Sheets of ice? And you got a fireplace? Anyways, the next day, things get a little sad. Junior starts shape-shifting into the other kids, one at a time, just trying to figure out how to be popular. He's literally trying on personalities like outfits, covers all the sleeping kids in snow to buy himself some time while he figures this out, but obviously Mandy smells a rat almost immediately. Billy gets sent in to investigate, finds the kids buried under the snow like a weird frozen lost and found, and that's when Junior corners him. He drops the act, shows himself, and asks Billy just one thing: to be his best friend. And Billy says no. He already has a best friend.
You could be my best friend.
Yeah, I can't be your best friend because Mandy is my best friend.
And that was a mistake. I'm just gonna let you see for yourself.
Makes me mad. So very mad.
So while that's going down, Mandy has already done the maths and figured out exactly who this kid is. Son of Nergal, Aunt Sis's kid, family vacation gone wrong, and she has leverage. She has her hands on Junior's teddy bear, Mr. Bonkers, which the more I sit with it, pretty fitting name. One threat to the bear and Junior completely collapses, bursts into tears, lets Billy go, and Billy, being Billy, forgives him on the spot and promises to be his friend until he sees Junior's actual form.
That's what you really look like?
Uh-huh.
Oh. Ah! Holy cow! I've never seen anything so horrible in my whole life!
And the episode ends on a genuine twist. On the bus ride home from Camp Paradise, we get the strong implication that Billy might not have been Billy at all. And one last thing on this one, because it is worth flagging, the entire episode is almost certainly a riff on John Carpenter's The Thing, the 1982 horror flick where a shape-shifting alien gets dug out of the ice and starts taking the forms of people around it. I couldn't find Adams personally confirming this anywhere, but the parallels seem too obvious to ignore, and I'm pretty sure the alien in The Thing did not have a teddy bear named Mr. Bonkers. The bones of it, though, same story. Horror movie references in this show are basically a given at this point, and there's plenty more of them on the way. On to Sister Grimm, the second segment of this episode. If you ever needed proof that hanging around Billy long enough will absolutely ruin your day, this episode is the perfect example. The setup is simple. Billy and Mandy are messing around at the park. Billy's on a swing. Mandy decides a normal push ain't gonna cut it. So she musters every ounce of her strength and sends him so far into the air, he basically clears the atmosphere. And Grimm, bless him, picks the single worst possible moment to wander into the scene, and he gets absolutely cleaned out by the swing on its way back down. And just like that, the Grim Reaper is airborne too. He comes crashing down somewhere in Europe, Germany, Switzerland, I don't know, somewhere over that way. I'm not great with European geography, sue me. And through a series of events that only make sense in this universe, he ends up with a paint bucket stuck in his head that makes him look exactly like a nun. You know, religious nun. Habit, holy. The painter whose bucket Grimm is now wearing takes one look at him and decides, yup, that one's going to the nunnery. And what's even weirder is that when he gets there, the nuns just accept him. Apparently, he is the spitting image of another nun called Sister Big Mama. And Grimm, to his credit, does attempt to explain himself. He's not a nun. He is genuinely the furthest possible thing from a nun that has ever existed on this planet. And I guess you could say he's having none of it. Obviously.
This guy stinks!
But something inside Grimm actually likes the idea of being a nun. So he goes, yeah, sure, I'll be Sister Big Mama. You know what? Why not? He commits. He has the time of his life. And meanwhile, Billy and Mandy clock that Grimm is missing. Because, I mean, he disappeared. So they track him down to the nunnery, bumped into the painter on the way, follow the trail, blow Grimm's cover in front of everyone, and the nuns are obviously not happy. But Grimm owns it, he apologizes, makes it clear that even though the whole thing was built on a lie, he meant every second of it. And the nuns take it well. They send him, Billy, and Mandy off in the most fitting way possible, launching them all the way back to Ensville. Now, one Easter egg worth flagging. At one point, we see a nun jump off a cliff with an open umbrella, which is a direct nod to The Flying Nun. Yes, that was a real show, late 60s ABC sitcom, Sally Field, 1967 to 1970. And honestly, there's just something about a super obscure late 60s sitcom reference in a kid's show from 2003 that I just genuinely love. You don't get that enough. I mean, the show was operating on a level the average 8-year-old viewer was never gonna clock, and the writers did it anyways for, you know, the parents. Not me, I wasn't watching a show from the 60s. And then for the final segment of these episodes, you have Go-Kart 3000. And speaking of things I love this segment. It's easily one of my favorites. Billy and Erwin are in the basement putting together a go-kart for an upcoming race. The boys should know better, but of course they start teasing Mandy and Grim about how the two of them couldn't possibly enter because obviously one's a girl and one's a skeleton. Get out of here. Side note, I feel like a skeleton would actually be an unbeatable driver. No body weight, pure aerodynamics. I'm just saying. Anyways, the jab obviously gets Mandy and Grim fired up, so they enter the race too. So now we've got Mandy and Grim, Spurg and Mindy, Billy and Erwin, and one mystery driver in a little red wagon with a paper bag over his head. The crowd is losing it laughing at him. I wonder who that could be. The race starts. It's immediately chaos. Mandy and Mindy are going door to door for the lead. Spurg is ordering a cheeseburger at the side of the road, which, I mean, to be fair to him, is probably what I would do. I kind of want a cheeseburger now. Billy and Erwin fly past Spurg, and then Spurg finally remembers there's a race happening, decides the cheeseburger can wait, and absolutely tears through the pack. He nearly sends Mandy and Grim flying off the side of a suspended highway because that's the kind of road this episode just hands us. No questions asked, and absolutely demolishes Billy and Erwin's go-kart. He is closing in on the finish line. It looks done. He's going. He's zooming until Grim whips out the scythe, tears open a hole in the ground, and swallows Spurg whole. And look, when you have the literal powers of death, you better use them. But it backfires almost instantly. The hole reopens, launches Grim and Mandy and Spurg back into the air, and while all of that is going on, the little red wagon, paper bag still on the kid's head, just quietly trundles across the finish line. And who is that mystery rider? Puddin'! It's Puddin'! Of all people in this entire show, Puddin'! And honestly, good for him. The crowd goes absolutely feral for him for about a half a second, but Puddin' immediately can't handle the eyes on him and reverts to, well, himself. On to the next episode, 5 o'clock Shadow, episode 3 of season 2. 2 segments rated an 8.2. And it opens up with Billy asking approximately a bazillion questions, which on any other day would be insufferable, except this one question actually lands. Where do shadows come from? Normal person says the sun. Mandy walks away from him. Grim makes the fatal error of actually engaging, and he suggests that they go to the shadow world and find out. Now, you would think after everything these three have been through, Grim would know better than to open that particular door, but here we are. They get to the shadow world, and Billy's shadow immediately gets up and walks off on its own. Then Mandy's shadow comes alive too. And here's where the show breaks your brain. You'd expect Shadow Mandy to be terrifying. However, instead, she's bubbly, enthusiastic, twirling her head around, giggling like she's at the best sleepover of her life. And Mandy watches this for maybe 3 seconds before turning to Grim and asking him to destroy her. How else did you think she was gonna react here? Grim steps in before it gets to that point and explains the rules. They have to spend 12 hours with their shadows before they can leave, and the shadow world connects to parallel universes through doors, which under no circumstances are they allowed to open. Billy hears this, files it directly into the trash. So Billy and his shadow head to the park. Shadow Mandy skips off to her magic unicorn garden. Yes, that is a real plot point in this episode. And Mandy clocks the unicorn thing and decides she needs to see this for herself. What she finds is Shadow Mandy hosting a tea party, pouring pretend tea, living her absolute best life with a bunch of unicorns. Mandy sits down, looks around, and just starts deconstructing. The unicorns aren't real. The tea isn't real. The whole thing is a factory product from Detroit. Detroit of all places. I'm sure Detroit kind of appreciated being included in this episode though. Meanwhile, Billy and his shadow have wandered into a forest full of doors. A weird sausage-shaped man appears and warns them that even one of those door windows breaks, copies of whatever broke it will start wandering the shadow world. And if I had a sausage man approach me when I was a kid, I would have never told anyone about that. Until maybe now. I'd probably make a video on it, to be honest. Billy's shadow starts barking and pointing at the door that's already broken, And out of that door comes an entire army of Billies. The real Billy solution suggests they all go get soda and ice cream, which if you think about it, is probably the worst possible move you can make with an infinite number of Billies. But who am I? Back at the Unicorn Garden, Mandy has had enough. She sits her shadow down self and systematically dismantles every single thing she loves about her life. And it works a little too well. Shadow Mandy goes from giggling Tea Party host to destroying every unicorn in sight in 30 seconds flat. Mandy created a monster, a more accurate monster. Grim eventually calls time on the whole thing. He takes one look at the two Mandys standing side by side and has literally no idea which is which. And then Billy shows up with his shadow and the entire army of Billies trailing behind him. Now, I guess Grim has an eternity to figure out what to do with the rest of those Billies. On to segment 2, the terror of the Black Knight. Now, I'm sure Grim's day is gonna get better in this episode, but actually knowing the show, it's absolutely not going to get better. A medieval fair rolls into Endsville, and Billy clocks Irwin walking around in legitimately realistic knight's armor, like full plate, the real stuff. And Billy decides immediately he needs his own. Now, a normal person would walk over to one of the 5 plastic helmet stalls at the fair, pay $5. Billy, he goes straight to Grim. Grim then conjures up an entire suit of real armor, and Billy's thrilled, because obviously, who wouldn't be, especially a young boy. Now, he loves this right up until he needs the bathroom, because that's when the curse kicks in. Because of course there's a curse. There's always a curse. He can't take the armor off until he beats someone in a challenge. But it can be any challenge, so that's not too bad. That sounds manageable. Until you remember this is Billy. He challenges Irwin to a joust, trips, loses. He challenges Puddin to a pie eating contest, which should be a layup, except Billy eats all of Puddin's pies before the contest even starts. Forfeit. Side note though, Puddin's apparently allergic to pie, so Billy may have unintentionally saved his life there. You're welcome, Puddin. Billy then pulls out a sword, challenges Grim, drops the sword on his own head because it's too heavy for him, and that's 3 losses on the bounce. So at this point, Billy is desperate for the bathroom, fully encased in armor and out of opponents except for one. He challenges Mandy to a dance contest, which is somehow genius because Mandy refuses to do something as dumb as dancing. She walks away. So Billy actually wins by default. Curse broken, armor off. Now, of course, after all that dancing, he don't need to pee anymore. I genuinely don't know how Grim does it living with these people. I would be in a mental hospital by 2 p.m. On to the next episode, Grim for a Day, Season 2, Episode 4, 3 segments rated a 7.9. So Grim's life, it looks kind of hard, but the kids think he has it easy. And in Grim for a Day, an argument breaks out about whose life is actually tougher, at which point Mandy, in her infinite wisdom, suggests they swap. Grim has to live Billy's life. Billy gets handed Grim's scythe and all. Grim heads to school dressed as Billy. Billy gets Grim's to-do list, which has exactly one job on it. Reap the soul of a pet bird named Mr. Voorhees. And if the name didn't tip you off, yes, that's a Jason Voorhees reference, Friday the 13th, which means the Grim Reaper's actual job for the day in this children's cartoon is a slasher movie joke. And I'll never stop being amazed at what this show was sneaking into the Saturday morning block. Billy rocks up to the address in his full Grim costume to claim Mr. Voorhees. The old guy inside takes forever to answer the door, finally opens up, takes one look at the literal Grim Reaper standing on his porch, and immediately just assumes it's Halloween. He hands Billy a piece of candy. Billy was sent to reap a soul. He came home with candy. I bet Grim couldn't have pulled that one off. Meanwhile, Grim's at school, and the longer he spends pretending to be Billy, the more he literally turns into him. He races back to the house, but by the time he gets there, he's a tall, gangly Billy. And Billy is tiny little Grim. And honestly, after that, I would need something a lot stronger than steak sauce. The next segment here is Chicken Ball Z! Yes, remember in the Season 1 video, we covered Hokemon, the Pokemon meets Yu-Gi-Oh! Parody? Well, it's happening again, but this time, it's Dragon Ball Z. The title alone should tell you what we're working with here, you know, obviously. And let me tell you, oh my god, does the show commit to this parody. Mandy wants to enter a local karate tournament. The prize, $50,000. And she asks Grim to train her. Grim says no, so Mandy heads to a curio shop run by a mysterious shopkeeper named Quan Ti, who hands her an ancient chicken ball and tells her that eating it will turn her into an unstoppable fighter. Without questioning literally any of this, Mandy just eats the ball and she gets ripped, bro. When she shows up the tournament, her hair is styled into the massive upright black spikes, which we know is a direct shameless dig at Vegeta. And I would do a her power level is over 9,000 joke here, but I'm above that. It's over 9,000! Apparently I'm not. Anyways, Mandy proceeds to absolutely dismantle every single fighter in her path without even breaking a sweat. And the problem is, the chicken ball has done more than just make her a great fighter. She stopped caring about the prize money entirely and just wants to keep fighting, which is when the twist drops. Quan Ti was actually Eris in disguise the whole time. And quick aside on Eris, we met her in earlier episodes. She's the goddess of chaos and discord, and like Nergal, she's actually based on a real Greek god. Well, real-ish. I've met a couple people who think they're the god of discord. They had neckbeards. So if you're keeping a tally, this show has now done a Mesopotamian god, a Greek god, a Stanley Kubrick reference, a John Carpenter reference, a Friday the 13th reference, and a fully throttled Dragon Ball Z parody, and we're still not done with the season. Back to the episode, Grim watches what's happening to Mandy, and for one brief, shining moment thinks he might finally be free of her. So his plan? Power Billy up to let them duke it out. Maybe they take each other out, and honestly, it's not a bad plan. So Billy shows up to the arena. Mandy clocks him and tells him he looks like a nerd. Billy responds,
When I left you, I was but a nerd. Now, I am the master.
which is word for word Darth Vader quote from A New Hope. So we could add Star Wars onto the list now too. Jesus Christ.
When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
The two of them go at it. The fight's absolutely ferocious. They tear the entire arena to pieces, brick by brick, until there's literally nothing left standing. Grim's plan does not work. Both kids survive, the chicken ball effect wears off, and they're back to their normal selves. Mandy still wants her money, and she gets it. And what does she do with $50,000? She buys Bunny Island from Hector Con Carne and inherits his entire quest for world domination in the process, which when you think about it, is probably the most fitting use of $50,000 in the entire run of the show. From here, we move on to Halls of Time, and I'm gonna be real with you, this might be one of my favorite episodes. This one, we gotta do a bit of homework first. Halls of Time originally aired August 1st of 2003. It was paired up with Terror of the Black Knight and Battle of the Bands. That's the original broadcast. Streaming services and the production order Australian DVD reshuffle things though, which is why Halls of Time often shows up grouped with Grim for a Day and Chicken Ball Z. On top of that, when 5 o'clock Shadow finally aired in October 2004, that segment was a full 14 minutes long, way too long for a normal slot. So Cartoon Network paired it with a rerun of Terror of the Black Knight and slotted in a rerun of Halls of Time to pad out the rest of the broadcast block. Between the streaming reshuffles and the 2004 rerun shuffles, Hall of Time has been bounced around more than any other episode in this season, so if you've been confused about why this one shows up in weird positions on different platforms, that's probably why. But honestly, episode ordering aside, Halls of Time slaps. Spoiler, it follows Chicken Ball Z without breaking a sweat. The episode opens with the gang missing out on a school field trip. So Grim decides to take Billy and Mandy and Erwin on his own field trip to the Halls of Time, where every single person's lifespan is represented by an hourglass, and the entire place is overseen by Father Time himself, plus his son, Happy New Year. And this is where this show again drops a reference that you have to have been watching these with your grandma back in the day to understand. Father Time and Happy New Year are wildly thought to be at least partially based on their counterparts from the 1976 Rankin Bass stop motion special, Rudolph's Shiny New Year. Rankin Bass, the Christmas specials, those guys. Now, I couldn't find Adams personally confirming this anywhere either, but the resemblance is uncanny. So this show now also contains a deep cut to those old Christmas shows you used to watch with your grandparents, or at least I did. And that's in one episode. I can't say it enough. I love this show. Now, the tour is going fine right up until Father Time turns his back for 5 seconds, at which point Billy and Erwin immediately sprint off to find something to break. They find the hourglasses, they start messing with them like they're toys, they break one. And whoever it belonged to just blinks out of existence. And honestly, some days I wish someone would break my hourglass. Seriously, forget going in your sleep. That's how I want to go out. Father Time catches them, forces them to put everything back, throws them out. Except they put their own hourglasses back upside down, which means instead of time moving forward, it's moving backward, and everyone starts getting younger. Grim races back to fix it, but by the time he gets there, Erwin's already going first. One by one, they start blinking out of existence, regressing past the point of being born. And here's where Grim does something genuinely disturbing. When it's Mandy's turn, he just stands there. He watches. He deliberately lets her hourglass run out so he can finally be free of her. He gloats about it openly, and while he's doing that, he completely forgets about his own hourglass being upside down. By the time he remembers and tries to flip it back, he's shrunk too small to lift it. And that's where the episode ends. On Grim, tiny, unable to flip an hourglass. Mandy gone, Billy gone, Erwin gone. I guess this is one of those alternate universe stories, or maybe it's all a dream, or maybe it's just a cartoon and I'm thinking about it too much. But what can I say? That's what I do here on the channel. They wrote a children's cartoon where the Grim Reaper attempts a passive-aggressive death by hourglass on an 8-year-old and gets immediately punished for it by the universe. Then we get to one of the most iconic episodes in the entire franchise, Billy and Mandy's Jacked Up Halloween, Season 2, Episode 5, rated an 8.4. The first big special of the series. And it's worth flagging up top, this is one of those specials that got caught up in music licensing hell and got pulled from digital platforms at various points. So if you want a physical copy, eBay it is, and we already know what the prices on those tapes look like. More on that situation later, I guess. For Halloween, Billy decides to dress up as Grim. And I guess he likes spending a full day as the Bag of Bones in the last episode. And before I tell you what Mandy is dressed as, I want you to guess. So if anybody gets Hamlet, the Shakespearean tragedy from approximately 1599, and you've never seen this episode before, go play the lottery this week. I mean, seriously. Now, in context, it makes sense. She's holding Grim's actual skull, which is the whole Yorick bit, but the leap from Halloween costume on a children's cartoon to William Shakespeare is one of the funniest creative choices I've ever seen. After the kids pull a Halloween prank on an old lady, Grim tells them the actual origin story of why people play tricks on Halloween. And it all goes back to a medieval prankster from Ennsville named Jack. Now, Jack was a pleasant enough guy, but he could not stop pranking people. Sawing chair legs, switching road signs, kick me signs, chattering teeth, reportedly the original inventor of several classic pranks. He was staying up all night inventing new ones and laughing himself to sleep when he was done. We all enjoy a prank every now and again, but this guy was way past the line. So the townspeople of medieval Ennsville arranged a hit on him. Grim shows up to collect his soul, and here's the thing. Jack outwits the literal Grim Reaper. And I want to talk about that for a second, because this seems to be a trend. Grim got tricked by Billy and Mandy. Literal children. He got tricked by this guy, Jack. And we can't forget Who's Who, where he got tricked by Mrs. Dooland. Grim, get your shit together, my guy. So obviously, this is embarrassing for Grim, probably because it's the first time he was beaten, now that I think about it. And he doesn't die. But the cost is very high. Grim slices Jack's head clean off its shoulders, and Jack is now forced to replace it with a pumpkin. And a pumpkin-headed man does not exactly blend in at the grocery store. So Jack got shunned by society and forced to only come out on Halloween when he could pass as a costume. So when Billy shows up to Jack's house on Halloween night, dressed as the Grim Reaper, carrying the actual Grim Reaper scythe, Jack sees his moment. He distracts Billy with a feather, tickles him, steals the scythe, and uses it to possess pumpkins with the souls of the dead. He unleashes an army of genuinely grotesque jack-o'-lantern monsters on Ennsville with the goal of destroying Grim, making the sun never rise again, and turning every night into Halloween so that he can finally walk around in public. Now, as villain plans go, it's actually a little sad when you think about it. I don't have time to dwell on that though. He is tearing that town apart. Mandy finally comes up with a plan to take Jack down, using a series of pranks. Billy is the distraction. Billy's distraction is, well, it's something. What the? We're just gonna move past that one. Jack knew about the prank the whole time. He's not scared. Mandy's plan looks like it's falling apart, and then Erwin stumbles into every single trap by accident and trips every single prank. Jack starts laughing, his pumpkin army starts laughing, and they literally laugh themselves to death, which is actually an even better way to go than the hourglass from earlier. I'm just throwing it out there. Now, with his army gone, the gang banishes Jack to the underworld, where the demon promptly eats his pumpkin head. The end. It's genuinely a brilliant special. It's funny, it's dark, it's a little scary, and Jack is a real villain, voiced by Wayne Knight. And yes, that Wayne Knight, Newman from Seinfeld. Now, I don't know what else you want from a Cartoon Network Halloween special, but this one is top tier. From here, we move on to Nigel Planter and the Chamber Pot of Secrets, Season 2, Episode 11, a 2-segment episode, rated an 8.0. The episode is literally called Nigel Planter and the Chamber Pot of Secrets. I mean, come on, Harry Potter spoof at this point. It's completely out in the open. We're not trying to hide it here. The episode opens up at a golf course where the gang bumps into Nigel, hiding out, and is absolutely terrified, because he's being hunted by the most feared dark wizard in existence, Lord Moldybutt. That is his name. That's his actual name. And that is obviously the show's answer to Voldemort, and honestly, is way funnier. Being terrified of Lord Moldybutt, way better than Voldemort. J.K. Rowling, take some notes from Maxwell Adams. Now, the bit is that just saying his name out loud causes things in the immediate vicinity to break, and the show commits to this for the entire episode, every single time, without exception. Nigel begs the gang to come back to Toadblat's School of Sorcery with him as protection, and they agree. They head back, and the very first red flag goes up immediately. Dean Toadblat, who has spent the entirety of his existence openly hating Nigel, is suddenly being warm and friendly with him, which anyone who has ever watched a single mystery in their life knows that is not great. That night, Lord Moldybutt himself sneaks into Weaselthorpe House and creeps into Nigel's dorm room with one specific warning: stay away from the Chamber Pot of Secrets in Toadblat's office.
Stay away from the Chamber Pot of Secrets, or else.
It also doesn't stop there. He also tries to choke Nigel out because duh. Mandy spots him and he bolts, but he leaves behind a strange powder on the floor. Mandy and Grimm go into full investigation mode, while Billy is given the one job of standing guard outside Nigel's classroom. He is as useful as shaving foam to a Wookiee. Moldybutt walks right past him, sneaks into the office. Toadblat then calls Nigel into the office and tearfully tells him he has to leave the school. They can't protect him anymore. And that's when Mandy makes her move. As Toadblat is mid-goodbye, Lord Moldybutt bursts dramatically out of the Chamber Pot of Secrets. It's a costume. The powder left behind in the dorm room was latex mask residue, and the hair and fingerprints they collected matched Toadblat's exactly. Toadblat did the whole thing. He breaks down and delivers a line straight out of Scooby-Doo. He admits the whole long con was to get Nigel out of his school because Nigel sucks, which I understand. He's garbage, but Nigel gets the last laugh and shrinks Toadblat down to the size of a golf ball. And Grimm, who has fully forgotten he's a literal omnipotent reaper of souls and not like a guy on the Sunday tea time, proceeds to tee Toadblat up and drive him into the distance, in the direction of a French restaurant. And the French, famously, they love frogs. At least they did back in the day. I don't know. If you're French, do you like frogs? Later, Dean Toadblat. On to Circus of Fear, the last one for season 2. In this one, the kids are bored, like Billy putting holes in the wall with a hammer, bored. Grimm steps in before there's no house left and takes them down to the underworld to see a circus, the Circus of Fear, run by the mysterious Dr. Fear. Mysterious and scary. Big swing on the branding, Doc. You're killing it, bro. The circus has a few acts, but the clear star of the show is Clortho the Beastmaster, introduced as the greatest act they've got. And after the show, Clortho is backstage having a complete meltdown because the circus is hemorrhaging money, and he's blaming the lack of quality freaks in the lineup. Now, the episode itself is happy to point out that the actual problem is the tickets are outrageously overpriced. Tell me about it, bro. You ever try to go to a concert these days? You might as well sell your kidney. So when Clortho spots the kids in the audience, dollar signs hit his eyes because in the underworld, real-life human beings are the rarest and most fascinating things imaginable. They're the freaks down here. He goes straight to Grimm to buy them on the spot, and Grimm says no, which, given that Grimm has spent multiple episodes at this point actively trying to get rid of these kids on his own, I'm honestly shocked by it. He takes the kids home. Then, Clortho turns to the audience and reveals he is actually Dr. Fear. Oh, plot twist! Even if it was the most obvious twist in the world, but plot twist. Dr. Fear kidnaps Billy and Mandy, hauls them back to the underworld while Grimm is at home enjoying the peace and quiet. Right up until Billy's mom walks in, finds Grimm lounging around alone, and informs him that if Billy isn't back by dinner, there will be, and I quote, grim consequences.
If Billy isn't back by dinner, there will be grim consequences.
Fantastic double entendre. Grimm heads back to the circus. Eventually, Mandy has had enough of being a sideshow act and breaks loose, gets her hands on a whip, and goes right for Clortho. She cracks him across the face, dude. The mask comes off. It's Dr. Fear underneath. She cracks him again. Another mask. It's Billy's mom. She cracks him a third time. Another mask. It was Eris all along. Eris again, by the way. Greek goddess of discord and chaos. Big season for Eris. But here's the kicker. None of them are the real Dr. Fear, because the real Dr. Fear is a fucking earthworm. Yeah, you didn't see that coming, did you? Don't lie to me. Unless you've already seen this episode, then you probably did see it coming. But if you didn't see that coming. And that's season 2. You see what I mean? Season 2 is where the show fully unlocked. The horror references stopped being little Easter eggs and started becoming the entire spine of an episode. The pop culture parodies got more ambitious. Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, Hamlet, Star Wars, The Shining, The Thing, Friday the 13th, a Rankin Bass Christmas special for God's sakes, Harry Potter, The Flying Nun, all in one season for kids. Crazy. And Maxwell and his team somehow snuck all of that past Cartoon Network exec team, who, as we covered in the cancellation video, would later decide this was the wrong tone for the network. Some days I'm thoroughly convinced these guys just weren't paying attention. And thank God for that. Now, I've been thinking about how to handle the back half of the series for a while. Because here's the thing. Season 3 and 4 of Billy and Mandy are mostly 2-segment episodes. The absolute bangers thin out a little, and we've got a Christmas special hanging in there that needs its own time. Now, before we get into the action real quick, I just want to flag that Wishbones is one of those episodes that can get a little confusing on the first watch. It is rated an 8.3 though, so people clearly like it. Because it's basically one story, but inside that story, it's a bunch of smaller stories all glued together. And I think the brainiacs in the writing business call it a vignette episode. You know, where a bunch of little stories are connected by one specific thing. Well, in Wishbones, that thing is Thromnobular.
Thromnambular is what I am called.
That's our guy. A magical skull, ruby eyes, number 9 stamped on his forehead, and the gang fishes him out of the laundry of all the places to find it, because apparently magic wish-granting skulls hide in dirty socks now, and that's how he is brought to life. Now, Thromnobular isn't just a magical skull. He's a wish granter, and I imagine that some of you are sitting there going, why hasn't Grimm used the skull to wish out of being enslaved by Billy and Mandy? Well, it's a great question. Well, when Mandy asks him literally that, Grimm explains that Thromnobular's wishes always corrupt themselves and backfire horribly on whoever makes them. He's basically a jackass genie trapped in a skull, and Grimm has known about the thing the whole time and never once touched it. So clearly there's a reason there. I mean, we're talking serious restraint. Grimm is literally enslaved by these kids, has a magical wish-granting skull. He's not using it. I mean, if I was Grimm, I'd probably gamble it. I mean, how much worse can life truly get for him? Maybe don't answer that. Now, Billy, on the other hand, has the restraint of a Labrador near an open pantry. He grabs the skull, runs away before anyone can stop him, and obviously he gets to wishing.
I wish I could be an internationally known boy adventurer traveling the world with his scientist parents, his pet dog, and his best friend who's from India. Fight strange monsters and look for lost civilizations and hunt for ancient treasure!
Billy's wish is a full-on Johnny Quest and Raiders of the Lost Ark parody, all rolled into one. Now, Indiana Jones, you guys probably know. Johnny Quest might be a little more niche. It's a 1964 Hanna-Barbera animated show. And if you've ever seen a kid in a red shirt with a dog and a turban wearing best friend, that's Johnny Quest. The show even reuses the original 1964 Johnny Quest music while Billy's wish plays out, which is honestly the kind of deep cut callback this show is undefeated at.
This you will know.
Anyways, Billy wants to go on a big adventure with his whole family, and Erwin as his crew, which sounds like a brilliant time right up until Erwin gets eaten by something midway through. Now, you would think that Billy would be a little sad or something, but no, he's just annoyed. So annoyed, in fact, that he physically shoves Thromnobular into the fridge as revenge. And that's exactly where Harold, Billy's dad, finds it. So what's Harold's wish? He wants to relive his glory days from high school.
I want to relive my cool high school years.
Now, as a dad myself, I would never want to go back to high school. Like, ever. I get where Harold is coming from, but come on, my guy. How did you trauma block your high school experience to the degree that you thought you were popular? Because when the wish hits and Harold gets thrown back in time, the man immediately discovered he was not popular. He was bullied by the jocks, bullied by the nerds, bullied by every single clique that existed in this school. And if anything, his current life is the upgrade, and that is saying something. The next person to grab Thromnobular, dude, this name. The next person to grab Thromnobular is General Scar. Yes, that General Scar. The guy from Evil Con Carne. The weird-looking, bald-eyed, patched, fundamentally exhausted-looking villain who is hell-bent on world domination. That guy. He picks up the skull, wishes for, of course, supreme power and total world domination.
Really? Just to be Lord High Master and the ruler of the world? That's all.
I'm shocked. But it doesn't quite pan out, because a giant stone statue of Scar rises out of the ground and just keeps going up and up and up and up and up until it punches clean through the atmosphere and into space, where Scar, who is now sitting at the top of it, like the world's most miserable Statue of Liberty, immediately runs out of oxygen and you should probably just see it.
Nowhere.
That's an easy enough mistake. You should have specified supreme power on Earth. Always read the fine print, Scar, come on. Up next, we have Erwin, who, despite being canonically eaten earlier in the episode, is somehow back and floating in a pool in his garden. And he wishes that he and Mandy could star in a hip-hop music video together. Now, if you know hip-hop music from this era, I think we know what he had in mind.
You know, sometimes I wish I was in a hip-hop video. Oh! Hey!
Hey, player, this ain't no jive. Wish number 6 is coming alive.
And it's genuinely the most ambitious wish a Grim Adventures character has ever had, considering how high the bar got later in this episode. Thromnobular drops him right into one, and Mandy obviously is not having it. She pops his inflatable pool, sends him flying naked through Ensville, and Erwin lands face first in a trash can. And honestly, dude, what the hell were you expecting? Now, do you have any guesses on who the next victim of the skull might be? Well, if you said Puddin', ding ding, congratulations, you're right again. If you were watching the last episode, you got it right last time. Puddin' is back, and he wishes for a loving pet rabbit, which is the most wholesome wish in the entire episode. But remember, the skull makes your wishes backfire. So of course, the rabbit Puddin' gets is a rabid monster, and here's the genius of it. The rabbit does love him. The problem is, it loves him so much that it hunts him across the entire episode, trying to end his life. Now hear me out, Puddin'. I've had a few exes that did the same thing to me. You're not alone, buddy. Just keep trying. And while Puddin' is being chased, we get the Easter egg of the year. The bunny ends up driving a truck. The truck has an Optimus Prime / Autobot logo on the side. Transformers reference? Locked. But the truck chase itself, the way it's framed, the camera angles, the relentless pursuit of a small target by a much larger vehicle is basically a direct parody of the T-1000 truck chase from Terminator 2. 2 Easter eggs, 1 bunny. Maxwell Adams was cooking. Next up, we have Nergal Jr., and you would think after literally watching every other character in this episode get demolished by their wish, he would have something locked and loaded. But he doesn't.
I wish I knew what to wish for.
He actually burns his wish on wishing he knew what to wish for, which sounds like the absolute worst use of a wish I've ever heard of, until you realize he's the only character in this entire episode who walks away with 0 consequences. Maybe Nergal Jr. is actually the smartest character in the entire show. Then Spurg wishes himself into the girl's bathroom to steal money from a rich girl, and the skull turns Spurg into a girl. The other girls rip him apart, make fun of him until he runs off absolutely sobbing. Just a little taste of his own medicine never hurt anyone, Spurg, because obviously we know, nobody hates women like women. Then Mandy wishes to be a star.
I wish I was a big star.
I can make you the biggest star of all, but the bigger they get, the harder they fall.
And obviously she means a celebrity, with the gowns and the limos and the wardrobe assistant. And Thromnobular interprets that a little differently. He straps Mindy to a rocket, fires her into space, and she becomes a literal star. Be specific with your wishes. We've seen this throughout all of media pretty much ever. You gotta be very specific about them wishes.
I wish... Please, I wish you'd be quiet for 1 minute.
Especially when you only got 1 or 3 if it's Aladdin. Now here's the part that genuinely got me on the rewatch with this. The rocket Mindy is strapped to is labeled as a Genesis device.
Mindy, the girl who's been strapped to NASA's Genesis device rocket and launched into space.
And the entire launch sequence is a direct reference to Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Yes, they put a Wrath of Khan reference in this, in a kid show, about a little girl who enslaved death. I say this every time we do this, but god damn it do I love this show. So that's 8 wishes down, 1 to go. And who do you think uses the last one? Well, Mandy would normally be first in line, but she knows by now how dangerous Thrumnobular is. So she does the smart thing and auctions the wish off. Everyone in town wants a piece of the skull. The auction descends into chaos, and in the middle of all the noise, it's actually Grim who accidentally grabs Thrumnobular and uses the final wish. And his wish, it's a bit of a doozy.
I wish you two had never found that skull!
And just like that, the whole episode resets to the start. Every wish, every event, every consequence undone. Everyone is back exactly where they started with no memory of any of it. The episode ends with Mandy pushing Billy into the washing machine and him absolutely loving every second of it. But, and this is the part where the writers earn their pay, stay through the credits because we get to see what would have happened if Grim ever used a wish for himself. And his wish, both him and Thrumnobular, to be completely free from their situations. And Thrumnobular grants it by swapping them. Thrumnobular becomes the Grim Reaper, stalking the earth, collecting souls, and Grim becomes the Wishing Skull, trapped in an endless cycle of granting wishes for every idiot who picks him up. And I mean, as Grim said himself, the wishes always backfire, even his.
But it will backfire. Wishes always do.
Now, Wishbones is an incredible episode and probably very memorable, but it is the only one from season 3 that hits that top rated rank that we're looking for. So we're fast forwarding to season 4. Sue me, this is just based on ranking. My Fair Mandy, 8.2, let's do this. Now, this one is Grey Delisle's favorite episode of the entire run, at least according to the Mandy voice actress herself in a bonus DVD interview. And hold that fact, we'll come back to why she may have picked it. The title's a play on the 1964 film My Fair Lady, or if you're a theater person, the 1956 Broadway musical. But the parody is leaning on the film and the plot. It echoes the plot of that movie pretty hard, but more on that in a second. The episode opens on Scurvy Prevention Week at Ennsville Elementary. Every kid is walking around with a lime stapled to their face, and the school is hosting the annual Little Miss Scurvy beauty pageant, which is a genuinely insane thing when you think about it. Imagine they did beauty pageants for other diseases. You look beautiful, you're 100% gonna be Little Miss Bronchitis. Obviously, Mindy is in her element, parading around in her own float, gloating like she's already won, and Mandy, she's had enough already. She calls Mindy out. Mindy has been prepping for this exact moment all year long. Now, you'd expect Mandy to instantly enter, take her apart on the spot, except something really weird happens. The comet actually gets to her. Like, actually gets to her. Principal Good Vibes overhears the whole exchange and in his infinite wisdom encourages Mandy to enter the pageant and prove Mindy wrong. Which is either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, depending on how well you know Mandy. So Mandy walks up to Billy and Grim and asks them point blank, "Do you think I'm pretty?"
"I think you're pretty something."
Yeah, pretty mean.
Which obviously makes them both deeply, deeply uncomfortable. Billy and Grim immediately burst out laughing and spend the rest of the day and apparently the entire night cackling about it. But Mandy is not joking. She is serious. And when they finally figure that out, as good friends should, they actually agree to help her win. And this is where the My Fair Lady parallel locks in, because the entire film is about taking somebody who isn't conventionally attractive and turning them into a socially acceptable beauty. Same plot, just a different demographic. Now, to help Mandy, Grim calls in an old friend from the underworld, Crabina, the underworld's premier makeover artist. Now, Crabina is widely read as a Joan Rivers parody. The voice, the delivery, the rasp, the absolutely lethal one-liners.
Grim, darling, if I could move any part of my face, you'd know how happy I was to see you.
This is so embarrassing. I have to sit on this, and I'll explain this to you.
Maxwell Adams hasn't gone on record calling it, but everybody watching knew. And when Crabina first lays eyes on Mandy, her opening line is direct verbatim. "I mistook her for an angry tree stump." I'm sorry, what, 2005 Cartoon Network writer's room let that one through?
Oh my goodness! I mistook her for an angry tree stump.
What's wrong with my nose?
That's what I'm talking about. Crabina tells Mandy straight away, if you want any chance of winning this thing, you're gonna have to smile. Which sounds simple enough until you remember, Mandy has not genuinely smiled since she was a baby. And even then, according to Billy, she was sour from the womb. Crabina goes to work, makeup, acting tips, posture lessons, and when she's done, see for yourself,
Say hello to Ennsville's newest glamour girl.
Oh, my word.
I feel ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, looking good. I think it's kind of hard to tell. The day of the pageant arrives, and the competition is immediately stacked against Mandy because one of the three judges is Mindy's own mother, sitting right there on the panel. The other two are General Scar and Captain Green Gums, by the way, just for the record. Grimm clocks the conflict of interest immediately and is obviously not happy about it. The pageant runs, outfits, routines, throughout all of it. Mandy refuses to crack so much as a single hint of a smile, which is driving Krebina up the wall from the sidelines. Then Mindy does her talent act, and this is where this show once again smuggles a wildly nerdy reference past the network. Mindy puts her hand in a box with a hole in it, which is a direct parody of the Gom Jabber trial from Frank Herbert's Dune.
Put your hand in the box.
It burns!
It burns. Silence! Silence!
Brings total obliteration.
Yes, Dune, the 1965 sci-fi epic novel in a kid's cartoon. Let's go. And the best part, Mindy gets points deducted because she pulls her hand out just a little too early.
Arr, that'll cost her some points.
Which is also the failure condition of the Gom Jabber in the actual book. It's not really that subtle. I think we know what was inspired here. Then it's Mandy's turn, and Mandy gets up, dressed as Dorothy Gale from The Wizard of Oz. I don't know about you, I had no idea that Dorothy's last name was like on the record. Apparently it is. Mandy sings Over the Rainbow, which in and of itself is the single most un-Mandy thing this show has ever made her do. And then at the very last moment of the song, she smiles, and reality starts breaking.
So beautiful.
It turns out Mandy's perpetual grimeness isn't just a personality trait. It's a load-bearing beam holding the entire fabric of the universe together and forcing her to smile against her nature. And that's enough to start tearing reality apart at the seams. The whole episode collapses in on itself in a sequence that genuinely seems to be pulled straight from Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Flashing colors, horrified faces, reality folding. Again, not creator confirmed, but the visual language is right there. And when the dust settles, Billy, Mandy, Grimm, and Erwin have been dumped into Townsville. Yes, Townsville, where the Powerpuff Girls are from, with Billy, Mandy, and Grimm now cast as the Powerpuff Girls themselves, setting out to stop Mojo Jojo from breaking into a movie theater. And Erwin is Mojo Jojo. And make sure you stay through the credits for this one, because Erwin as Mojo Jojo is spending the entire end credit sequence struggling to get his belt off. GG, Erwin. Now, a few things worth flagging about this crossover. The Professor Utonium cameo at the end, that's the actual Tom Kane doing the voice. Yes, that Tom Kane. The original voice of Professor Utonium across the entirety of the Powerpuff Girls. He actually passed away on May 18th of this year in 2026. And he was a giant of voice acting. Yoda in the Clone Wars, Magneto in Wolverine and the X-Men, the narrator on basically every blockbuster trailer of the 2000s. R.I.P. And if you're really paying attention, Princess Morbucks, the spoiled brat villain from the Powerpuff Girls, actually shows up as a background character earlier in the episode, before the reality break. And here's the kicker. This episode aired July 29th, 2005. The original Powerpuff Girls series ended on March 25th, 2005. That's 4 months to the week. Adams put a Powerpuff Girls send-off in his own show 4 months after Craig McCracken's show signed off, which when you stop to think about it is one of the most thoughtful tributes one Cartoon Network creator could possibly make to another. Now we're on to the big shebang, the 43-minute double-length episode Billy and Mandy Save Christmas. We are treated to another seasonal spectacular. Instead of being split across 2 episodes, we got one basically TV movie, one continuous sit, and it is one of my favorite things the show has ever done. But before we dive in, a quick word on availability, because this special is another victim of music licensing hell. Yes, the same scourge that haunts the Halloween specials, this one is unavailable on US digital platforms. Not on Apple TV, not on Amazon, not on HBO Max, because of one specific song, Rats Round and Round. Yes, the 1984 Powerballed hair metal classic plays over the end credits of this special. and the licensing on that track never got cleared for streaming. So US viewers can not legally watch this special unless they own the DVD or wait for the Cartoon Network YouTube holiday livestream. Now, if you're in the UK or Australia, you might have better luck on Max International or Apple TV Regional, and for everybody else, you know what to do. Anyways, let's get festive. The whole thing kicks off with Grimm doing a sweet little Christmas monologue. Nice kids get presents, naughty kids pay the price. All very festive. Except in the background, Santa is getting absolutely shredded by a pair of green monster hands. Great way to set the tone for the next 43 minutes. Then we cut to Ennsville Shopping Plaza, where Billy is desperately complaining about the queue for the bathroom, until someone just points out that he has been standing in the line to see Santa Claus the entire time. Billy does not process this. He just barges to the front, climbs onto Santa's lap, and rattles off his Christmas list, which would be totally fine, except it becomes very, very clear that Billy has been, and how do I put this delicately, relieving himself on Santa the entire time.
Have you been relieving yourself on me this whole time?
Tis the season for giving.
Don't eat the yellow snow, kids. Now, luckily for Billy, this is not actually Santa. It's General Scar, which might make it a little worse. But I guess the evil overlord business is dried up and he's working the mall to make some rent. And when he discovers what Billy's been doing on his lap, he absolutely loses it. The mall riots, the crowd discovers their Santa is fake. It's chaos. And by the way, Mall Santa Scar is voiced by Armin Shimmerman. Yes, that Armin Shimmerman. Quark from Deep Space Nine, Principal Snyder from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the guy whose entire job in the 90s was playing weird little authoritarian figures with sharp teeth. Of course he was Scar. Perfect casting. Now, outside the mall, Mandy is flatly refusing to believe Santa even exists, and Grimm has had it. He opens a portal to the North Pole to prove to her, once and for all, that old Saint Nick, he's real. And as soon as they step through Grimm's portal, we see in the background Luke Skywalker fighting a Wampa. Direct Empire Strikes Back parody. Dropped in there for the people paying attention. And when they reach the workshop, it's completely deserted. And when they get inside, they find Mrs. Claus and the elves all barricaded together, terrified. Now, you may know her from fan wikis as Nancy Claus, but her actual on-screen credit is just Mrs. Claus, and she is voiced by Carol Kane. Yes, that Carol Kane, Yetta from The Princess Bride, Ghost of Christmas Present from Scrooged.
I'm the ghost of Christmas Present.
A genuine institution of weird, raspy, vaguely haunted voice acting.
It's okay, everyone. It's only death. You can all come out.
She owns this role. Mrs. Claus takes Grimm and the kids downstairs and shows them Santa lying in a gingerbread coffin because Santa has been turned into a vampire. Vampire Santa is voiced by, and yes, just wait, Gilbert Gottfried. Yes, that Gilbert Gottfried. Iago in Aladdin, the duck from Aflac commercials, the single most distinct voice on the planet for a solid 2 decades. I genuinely cannot think of a more chaotic casting choice for an undead, bloodthirsty Santa, and I mean that as the highest compliment. Now, Mandy works out they need to find and eliminate the head vampire to reverse this whole thing, and Mrs. Claus points them in the direction of Baron von Ghoulish, one of the world's head vampires, voiced by Malcolm McDowell. Yes, Malcolm McDowell, Alex from A Clockwork Orange, the 1971 Stanley Kubrick film. The one with the Beethoven and the bowler hats, the unpleasant things, and the show commits to the bit. Von Ghoulish literally sings Singing in the Rain in the bathroom while filing his fangs, which is a direct nod to the assault scene in A Clockwork Orange where Alex sings it. I cannot believe they got away with this on a kid's channel. Now, before they get to the Baron, Grimm and Mandy convince Billy to stay at the workshop because somebody has to be the man of the pole while Santa is out of commission. That's the actual line, the man of the pole. I'm not making it up. Then they head to the Baron's castle. And the Baron is an obsessive neat freak. He cares infinitely more about his clean floors than the two strangers who have just broken into his home. He explained that he's not the head vampire. They are looking for the head vampire. That we can't quite remember what that person looks like. And when Grimm and Mandy try to leave, he insists on coming along because they mentioned saving Christmas, and apparently that's just enough for the head vampire. Anyone who would rather clean the floor than be evil is a friend of mine, by the way. I hate cleaning. Please clean my floors. Back at the workshop, Billy is doing his absolute best to be helpful, which mostly involves falling into the cookie mixing machine and getting baked into a gingerbread house, eating the gingerbread figures who come to look at it, and replacing Rudolph's nose with a new one for absolutely no reason. He's trying. You could at least say that. But things take a sharp turn when Grim, Mandy, and the Baron get back, and Mrs. Claus suggests they go ask Vampire Santa directly what he remembers from before the bite. They head down to the basement. Mrs. Claus has quietly borrowed Grim's scythe to clean it. So when Vampire Santa bursts out of his coffin yelling, "I'll swallow your soul!" they have no scythe to defend themselves. And with that line, by the way, is a direct lift from Sam Raimi's Evil Dead 2, the 1987 horror sequel where Henrietta says it in the cellar. I'm gonna repeat that for emphasis. A horror reference from a Sam Raimi splatter movie and a Cartoon Network Christmas special. I can't say how much I love the show enough. It's just so good. And while all of this is happening, the Baron looks at Mrs. Claus and it clicks. Mrs. Claus is the head vampire. Bet you never saw that coming. Mrs. Claus finally reveals herself, and honestly, her backstory is one of the most genuinely moving villain backstories this show has ever given anyone. She and Santa built her whole operation together from the ground up. At the beginning, he was kind, generous, present, but as the naughty and nice list grew longer and longer, Santa became completely consumed by it, obsessively checking it, and Mrs. Claus found herself doing all of the work while feeling completely invisible. So she turned him into a vampire. I don't know, get a break, I guess? Listen, who am I kidding? I almost feel bad for her for a second, but she's still the head vampire, trying to murder small children, brutal villain, genuine motivation, real shit. With her secret out, Mrs. Claus sends her army of vampire bat elves after Grim and Mandy, and while Billy is off wandering the workshop alone. And here's where the special turns, because Billy stumbles across an emergency hologram of Santa that was put in place specifically for the contingency of Santa being turned into a vampire, which apparently has happened enough times that they wrote a whole protocol for it. The hologram explains what to do. Billy presents Vampire Santa with a bowl of freshly made cookies, and that turns him back to normal. Cookies and milk, the vampire antidote. Forget garlic, just grab yourself a sleeve of Chips Ahoy. While all of this is going on, Mandy is having a one-on-one showdown with Mrs. Claus, who transforms into an enormous bat monster. Grim and the Baron are frozen solid, and Mandy brilliantly calls, quote unquote, a couple of dorksicles.
I get to spend Christmas Eve with a couple of dorksicles.
Best line of the special, I'm calling it. It might be the best line of the entire show. What's crazy though, is it's Billy who actually saves Christmas. It's Billy who walks Santa back to his wife, and it is Billy who coaches Santa through a proper apology for everything that he put her through. Listen, Billy gets a lot of grief on this channel and everywhere, but every now and again, this kid earns it. Mrs. Claus forgives Santa, Santa forgives Mrs. Claus, and when Mandy raised the very reasonable concern that this could just, happen again, Santa reveals that Mrs. Claus was actually a vampire long before he ever even met her. He's always known, and then sometimes you just gotta have faith in people, and I kinda love that ending. If you give up on people too easily, they never get a chance to change. See, Santa is a saint after all, that's where the special ends, but stick through the credits, Grim gets a brand new scythe from Santa as a Christmas present. Earned. Mandy gets a heap of coal, also earned, and Billy helps Santa guide the reindeer. Hero of the hour. Don't take it for granted. It'll be a while before he does anything competent again, if ever. All good festive fun. And that's season 3, 4, and Christmas. You see what I mean? Seasons 3 and 4 are a bit different than season 1 and 2. Fewer multiple banger half hours, more 11-minute single segments, more ambitious one-offs, but the hit rate on the ambitious ones are insane. In just 3 episodes worth of viewing, we covered a Johnny Quest parody, a Raiders of the Lost Ark parody, a Terminator 2 parody, a Transformers Easter egg, Wrath of Khan reference, a My Fair Lady riff, a Dune Gob Jobber nod, a 2001 Space Odyssey homage, a Powerpuff Girls farewell tribute, an Empire Strikes Back gag, a Clockwork Orange callback, an Evil Dead 2 quote, and a Vampire Santa Claus voiced by Gilbert Gottfried. In 90 minutes of television, give or take. And Maxwell Adams and his team somehow snuck all of that past Cartoon Network exec team, who, as we covered in the cancellation video, would later decide this was the wrong tone for the network. And some days I am just thoroughly convinced these guys just were not paying attention, which is a good thing. All right, we are now on to the final stretch, and here's the thing about season 5 and 6. They have some of the best episodes in the entire show's history. And I know that I keep saying that, but it's true. I mean, we are talking about the highest rated episodes of the entire show here. We also have the series finale in this video, the actual last regular episode of the show, and I'm gonna level with you, it ends in a way you will absolutely not see coming. So here we open up with Keeper of the Reaper. Season 5, Episode 2, aired on January 13th, 2006. A double-length episode, I might add, and rated a 9.1. Because here's the deal. For many fans, and I'm putting myself on this list, Keeper of the Reaper is one of the greatest episodes of the entire run. And I think that the actual rating kind of shows that. And the thing is that the show didn't do full 30-minute episodes often. So you get what they had to do here. And it's all because of one specific character that we're about to meet. But before we get to him, I need to point out something the writer's room earned credit for. This episode was actually co-written by Richard Horvitz himself. Yes, that Richard Horvitz, Billy's voice actor, Moxie from Hell of a Boss. You know him, you love him, the guy who screams, "Destroy us all!" And he co-wrote it with his wife, Kristen Lazarian, and the storyboard artist, C.H. Greenblatt. A voice actor writing his own material alongside his wife on a kid's cartoon, you don't get to see that every day. And as soon as the episode opens, we get a title card I have to talk about. I mean, look at this thing. This is a direct parody of Metallica's And Justice for All album cover. A 1988 Metallica album cover parodied in the Cartoon Network kids show about a little girl who enslaved death. Fantastic. The episode opens up with Harold announcing he has been transferred at work and the whole family now has to move out of Ennsville, which is obviously devastating news for Billy, who immediately tries to pack Grim into his suitcase. But Mandy ain't having it. She needs Grim for her chores, and she ain't letting him go without a fight. Neither of them will budge, obviously, so Grim makes one of probably the worst decisions of his entire afterlife. He suggests they take the whole thing to Underworld Court and let a judge decide who gets custody of him. Which, when you think about it, is a deeply strange thing to suggest when you're the one being fought over. I think he was holding out hope that maybe the Underworld would be like, hey, he's the Grim Reaper, nobody owns him. Big mistake, buddy, you screwed up. Now, before we even get to the courtroom, you guys need to meet, that's right, Fred Burger. Now, I know you guys know who he is, but for any newcomers, Fred is a small, green, elephant-like demon from the Underworld who gets his jury duty summons at the start of the episode. He is voiced by C.H. Greenblatt. Yes, the same C.H. Greenblatt who co-wrote this episode, which is just such a good touch. And here's the part that most people don't know. Later that same year, Greenblatt would go on to create Chowder for Cartoon Network. Same artist, same year, same wide-eyed, simple-pleasured energy. The lineage from Fred to Chowder is so clean you can basically see it on screen. And while we're on it, Greenblatt himself has said the actual voice for Fred was inspired by Grover from Sesame Street. And the second you hear it, you kinda can't unhear it.
What are we supposed to be doing?
We have to listen.
To music? Oh, I like music!
From the moment Fred walks into that courtroom, he single-handedly derails the legal proceedings of the entire Underworld. He wants to know when he gets a hammer thingy. He borrows Judge Spleen's gavel, he spells out his own name, repeatedly I might add, and he asks about nachos. A lot. And at one point, he simply announces to the entire court that he needs to make a... I don't know, just let him tell you.
I have to go, pee-pee! I have to go, pee-pee! Real bad!
I mean, you gotta feel for this judge, dude. The actual court case is brilliant, though. We got a whole parade of witnesses. Irwin, Jeff, Little Porkchop, Mindy, and for reasons that are never fully explained, Major Dr. Ghastly from Evil Con Carne, who has absolutely no business being here, but he is. Billy's argument is very simple, that Mandy is a horrible person who would use Grimm's powers for evil, which Mandy just immediately confirms by straight up agreeing with him on the stand, which obviously doesn't exactly help her case, but she just seemingly doesn't genuinely care. The absolute highlight of the whole episode, though, is the musical number right in the middle of the trial, where Billy, Mandy, Grimm, and Judge Spleen all break into song about the custody battle. After the song, Spleen tries to rush through a vote while Fred is in the bathroom. Sneaky, sneaky. It almost works, except the jury gets stuck in a tie because one of them ate another one, which, all right, Underworld Court is what it is. And that means that Fred is now the deciding vote when he comes back. Spleen tries to explain the situation and asks Fred to pick between Billy or Mandy, and Fred just says yes. which of course then forces the judge into what can only be described as a moment of genuine enlightenment, realizing that what Fred is actually saying is that Grimm shouldn't be separated from either of them because it would destroy their friendship, their most personal treasure, even more personal than a toothbrush. Fred says yes. And somehow, this just completely breaks Judge Spleen, who then bursts into tears along with the entire jury. His ruling: Billy's family is placed under house arrest and never allowed to leave Ennsville, which is simultaneously the most Mandy outcome possible and the most legally unhinged judgment ever delivered in any court, fictional or otherwise. The episode ends with Billy, Gladys, and Harold sitting in the ruins of their destroyed house under guard, and Billy wearing an ankle bracelet that'll set off an alarm the second he steps off property.
Second thought, I think I'll just hang here.
I'm not sure that house arrest thing carries over into future episodes, but it is a fantastic idea. So there we have it. The greatest episode this show has ever made, co-written by Billy's voice actor and his wife, featuring the voice debut of a future Cartoon Network showrunner with the Metallica album cover parody as the title card, and introducing the one and only Fred Squared, Fred Burger.
But sometimes I like the music that goes like...
Oh my God. And quick note, Fred Burger became such an immediate breakout character that Cartoon Network used him all over their 2006 promos. They made merch. They re-aired this episode in prime time. From a single appearance, that doesn't happen with side characters. The kid earned every nacho he ate. Up next is the kind of episode only this show could pull off, and that's Spider Mandy. It was paired with Be a Fred, Be Very a Fred, rated an 8.1, and it opens a little bit weirder than I remembered. Billy trudges home from school completely exhausted, complaining to his parents that he spent the whole day feeling like there was a clamp on his head. Not that he would usually notice, but this time, he's actually right. Oh, poor Billy. I bet he wishes the house arrest was still in action right about now. Still feeling down in the dumps, Billy drags himself up to bed, only to find his son Jeff sitting there waiting for him, which predictably sends Billy into his usual bout of absolute terror. Jeff explains very calmly that he's come down with a case of the spider pox and has decided that Billy, his beloved father, is the obvious choice to look after him until he gets better. I mean, yeah, Billy has shown that he is super into Jeff, that he absolutely does not hate his guts or want him dead. Jeff falls asleep almost instantly after telling his dad that he's not budging, which leaves Billy with absolutely nowhere to go in his own house. He tries his parents' bed. Harold screams at him through a megaphone. He tries Milkshake's spot by the TV. The cat physically throws him through the window. Billy ends up sleeping outside by the fence, where Puddin leans over and asks him what he's doing out there. By the way, Puddin reveals that he was raised by wolves and therefore just lives outside permanently. You know, you think you know a guy. Puddin then asks a genuinely interesting question. If Billy's the spider's dad, then wouldn't that make Mandy the spider's mom, seeing as how he's always assumed the two of them are married? And something clicks in Billy's head. He shows up at Mandy's house at 3 a.m. with a balloon pinched between his fingers as a ring and asks her to marry him. This way, she'll become Jeff's legal mother and have to take care of him, because obviously, dads don't take care of the kids in the mid-2000s. Mandy cuts through every single word of this in about 4 seconds flat, figures out exactly what he's really asking, and kicks him out of the house. And while that's sad, it's about to get a whole lot worse for Billy, because in the morning, Mandy wakes up covered in bumps with 3, count them, 3 brand new pairs of arms. It turns out, thanks to Billy, Jeff's spider pox has spread to her overnight, and it's getting worse fast. Billy is so terrified of her new spider attributes that he is completely useless at helping her find Grimm. So Mandy just webs his mouth shut and gets on with it herself, which is arguably an improvement. While all of this is going on, Grimm comes home completely oblivious to the giant spider situation developing around him. He wanders past Billy's parents, getting snatched up in the webs, ignores Milkshake getting taken, goes directly to the fridge for a snack before a giant spider finally drops down on him from the ceiling. And when Billy gets back, he finds Grimm, Milkshakes, and his entire family wrapped up in an enormous web, with Mandy, who is now fully transformed into a spider monster, sitting in the middle of it all. Grimm explains the only cure for spider pox is venom from the spider that caused the infection in the first place. Means they need Jeff, which also means Billy has to face his greatest fear to save everyone. Now he goes back, gets the venom from Jeff's fang, fills up the potion, heads back just as Mandy's about to attack. Good man, Billy. Facing your fears is to save your family. Respectable. But here's the catch. He wakes up his son, and Jeff sees Mandy in her spider form. He is absolutely overjoyed because he's convinced she's his mother, which is both very sweet and deeply concerning, given she was about to eat him. Billy uses the venom to turn Mandy back to normal, and for a moment, everything is genuinely fine, until Mandy tells him that he saved her life. Billy is now so overwhelmed, he downs the rest of Jeff's venom and instantly knocks himself out. He wakes up a few days later in bed. Grim is there to deliver the news. Remember how Billy had the spiderpox germs on his unwashed hands the whole time and spread them to everyone that he touched? Well,
Can it be?
Nice going, genius.
And to make matters worse, he also told Jeff to leave and never come back, which means no more antidote. So now every single person in Ennsville is a giant spider, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. All because Billy chose not to wash his hands. So remember, kids, wash your hands when you deal with giant talking spiders. Not that you'd ever have to deal with that talking spider, but you know, just in case, especially if you live in Australia. Now we're on to the next segment, and our favorite elephant demon dude is back, and he's the second half of the same episode block as Spider-Man. Be a Fred. Be very a Fred. And it actually starts a little weirder than I remembered, with Grim doing a laxative commercial. It turns out the Grim Reaper is now the new spokesman for Big Move Laxatives, standing there in his robes telling the underworld that when big time celebrities need to make a big move, this is what they use. As part of the campaign, Grim announces a 500-word essay contest where the winner gets to spend the entire day with it. He comes home absolutely buzzing, convinced he's the hottest new celebrity in the underworld, and that whoever shows up is going to be screaming and crying and losing control of their bladder. Billy points out that he's really not that exciting, which is a pretty bold put down for someone who eats boogers on toast. Then the doorbell rings. You guys already know who it is, don't you? It's Fred Burger. He shows up at the door, ringing the bell over and over, just saying yes between each ring. Walks straight past Grim entirely, goes directly over to Mandy, and announces that she has no nose, which is true, but you know, that's a dangerous game to play, Fred. Anyways, the reasons he's at Billy's house is because he's the guy who won the essay contest. I guess the guy just wants to eat some frozen yogurt. Billy takes one look at this and very reasonably points out that Fred is clearly a man of simple pleasures. And then Fred turns on a lamp and becomes so overwhelmed with amazement. So yeah, Billy was right. He's simple. Grim heads down to Undercorp, convinced there's been some kind of mistake, and demands to see the other entries. At which point, a massive pile of essays gets dropped on his desk. He's thrilled, until he starts reading them and realizes every single one says exactly the same thing as Fred, because Fred was the only person who entered the contest. Not only that, but since Grim's commercial aired, Big Move laxative sales have absolutely collapsed, because it turns out nobody wants a product with death on it, which when you say it out loud makes complete sense. The executives give Grim one last chance to make Fred's day so spectacular that it turns into a PR success, and they make it very clear what happens to him if it doesn't. So the whole gang piles into the frozen yogurt shop in Ennsville, where Fred spends an eternity choosing between flavors, before setting on both chocolate and mint, which is a fantastic combo. Fred, you are my spirit animal. Grim tries to get a photo of himself and Fred for the PR campaign, but Fred keeps getting distracted by his yogurt and ruining every single shot. And just when they finally get into position, Billy walks directly into the frame and ruins the last one. Now, obviously, Grim is getting pretty annoyed at the situation, so he slams the table in frustration, which sends Fred's yogurt flying off the table and splatting on the floor. And Fred is now heartbroken over his yogurt to the point that he has a complete emotional breakdown, hiding himself in the freezer and accusing Grim of being a yogurt killer. Oh, fantastic. That'll get the boys down at Undercorp on side. Nothing says good PR like the kid you're spending the day with hiding in the freezer and calling you a murderer. Mandy takes the initiative, grabs Fred's essay, and rewrites the day's itinerary on the back of it to include Sassy Cat Land, which is sort of like a Disneyland Hello Kitty hybrid. The talk of hot dogs and rides is enough to calm Fred down and bring him out of the freezer. They head off, everything's going great, until Fred goes on one of the rides. Oh no.
Yourself. Holy moly!
Grim now believes Fred is dead, and the executives immediately gun for him. They fire him, beat him senseless with baseball bats, burn him with a flamethrower, pour hot coffee on him, which is not exactly how my last performance review went, but wasn't far off. And here's the thing. Fred's not dead. He is completely fine thanks to a snow yeti rescuing him from the frozen wasteland, and these yetis have something in common with Fred. So it looks like Fred has finally found his people, and better yet, they have mountains of nachos and frozen yogurt. you can't help but seeing him happy, even if it means Grimm took one hell of a beating for it to happen. Now, we've just had the return of one of our favorite characters with Fred Fredburger, but now it's time for another return. Sorry, Nergal. Rated an 8.2, Nergal's Pizza. You remember that ugly creature from the center of the earth? Well, he shows up to Billy's place with a homemade pizza and announces that it's going to be the best pizza anyone has ever tasted in their entire life. And you know what? He was not wrong. Billy loves it, Harold loves it, and even Mandy, who could find fault with literally anything, admits that it's genuinely quite good. I mean, yeah, sure, it's nice and all, but you wouldn't catch me eating anything that he has cooked. Despite my worries, everything's lovely and wholesome until Grimm takes a bite. That's all it takes. One mildly dismissive review from the Grim Reaper, and Nergal declares pizza war on him right there in Billy's living room. Now, Grimm, being Grimm, decides he's not backing down. He tells Mandy he's gonna get his grandma's secret pizza recipe because it'll blow Nergal's completely out of the water. Mandy agrees to help, but makes it abundantly clear she is only doing it because Nergal's pizza really was that good, and she has serious doubts that Grimm can top it, which doesn't exactly fill you with good confidence, but Grimm knows how good Grandma's pizza was. And so begins the Pizza War of Ennsville! Now, this isn't your usual cartoon rivalry either. This is legit Domino's and Pizza Hut levels. They both start running TV commercials, absolutely tearing each other apart. Grimm claiming Nergal's pizza contains dirty laundry, Nergal firing back that Grimm puts bugs in his. In some countries, fried insects are actually a delicacy, so it's not even that bad of a claim, but moving on. Grimm ups the ante by spreading a rumor that there's rat poop in Nergal's pizza, which would usually just be a stupid smear. Except...
And I hear there's rat poop in Nergal's pizza.
Sure, I pooped on a Nergal's pizza. Liked it.
Please, Nergal. Nergal, meanwhile, decides the answer's a secret ingredient, starts adding fairy dust to his recipes, which sounds magical and tasty, but the dust works in more than just the taste department. It starts turning people's faces into actual pizzas. So obviously that ingredient has to go. His next plan is to send Junior into Grimm's operation, disguised as Mandy, to steal Granny Grimm's legendary hot sauce recipe. So Junior heads in there as Mandy, walks in, and immediately gets clocked by the real Mandy, who spots him immediately. And things go pretty badly for the boy demon. He gets flattened and ends up on an anchovy pizza. Not anchovy. Anything but anchovy. Anchovy's disgusting. So of course, Nergal goes to plan B or C. Honestly, it could be plan Q at this point. He hands Junior a ghastly elixir to replace the hot sauce. Nergal himself admits he doesn't actually know what it'll do. He just knows that it's ghastly, which is not a great sign. Junior transforms into Granny Grimm, swaps the hot sauce out, and fools even the real Granny Grimm into thinking the elixir is just a new variety of her hot sauce. And the result is completely catastrophic. The ghastly elixir gives everyone who eats it Nergaling-like parasites that turn them into zombies. And on top of that, the pizzas themselves transform into giant monsters and start attacking the city. Nergal sees all of this unfolding and very quietly picks up his family and leaves Ennsville entirely, which is the hallmark of that coward from the center of the earth. But here's where it gets weird. The final scene pulls back to reveal that the entire episode was just a bedtime story being told by a talking pizza to his two pizza children.
Wow!
Okay, time for bed.
So is it real? Fake? Is that story like the Bible for pizza people? I have so many questions, so little answers, but then again, it's kind of just what this show is. And as a fun little fact, apparently the Japanese animation company Gainax were an inspiration for that ending. If any of you have watched Neon Genesis Evangelion, you'll know they pull something similar. So this show is now homaging a 1995 Japanese sci-fi anime for kids on Cartoon Network. Hey, what are you doing? That's the second half of the same episode. Hey, what are you doing? Opens with another trip to Sassy Cat Land. And just so you know, this time, if you get on a ride, make sure you're strapped in. They go on some rides, and the one they end up on is a mind-numbingly boring that it apparently is capable of literally boring you to death. The kids want something more exciting and ask Grimm for a proper undersea adventure. Grimm obliges and almost immediately regrets it because they ended up surrounded by sea creatures who are very much about to eat them, until a mermaid princess called Ariel shows up. Wonder what that could possibly be referencing. Disney's Little Mermaid, obviously. Yes, the 1989 animated classic with the redhead and the singing crab, now showing up at a Cartoon Network's kids show about a girl who, well, enslaved death. Welcome back. Ariel has a thing for Billy and wants to marry him, but her dad doesn't want her to go with the dirty landlubber. The pair of mermaids end up fighting, and Billy kind of just stands there watching. Classic Billy. Now, while Ariel is declaring her love, her dad rips his own body off and reveals himself to actually be Ariel's older sister, Uvula. Yes, another Disney parody, this one of Ursula. Uvula also wants to marry Billy. So now there are two mermaids fighting over him. Billy's solution, just offer to marry both of them. Like, Billy's a pragmatic man. Well, he's actually an idiot, but here he handles things quite well. Now, it turns out, a little like Nergal's Pizza, Billy has been spinning this entire story to his teacher, Miss Butterbean, who had only asked him what happened to his homework. She just wanted to know where the report was. Billy gave her an entire undersea epic with rival mermaids and a catfight. Grimm even tries to end the episode early at one point by breaking the fourth wall, which, by the way, is a hallmark of this show. When it ended in 2007, it actually held the record for most fourth wall jokes told on Cartoon Network. Pretty cool, huh? This episode is on the shorter side, for sure, but it's a fun little palate cleanser after the chaos of Nergal's Pizza. Now, the next one is rated an 8.1. El Dia de los Muertos Stupidos is a bit of a mouthful, but it's pretty underrated, and it shares its broadcast slot with a literal series finale. It kicks off with Harold driving the gang out for a hamburger, and somehow, though what can only be described as Harold's unique relationship with basic navigation, they end up in Mexico. I guess you can see where Billy gets it from now, if that wasn't obvious from the previous season. Mandy speaks up, tells Harold they've been in the car for hours, and she gets cranky when she's hungry, which she must be hungry all the time then. Harold pulls up what he believes is a drive-through window. And before he realizes that they are very, very, very far from Ensville, they have landed in the middle of the Dia de los Muertos celebration, which is genuinely beautiful and a really lovely bit of cultural color for the episode. But the local kids pull them aside pretty quickly to explain that it might be the last one ever. That is because a masked luchador called Del Uglio, who is as ugly as his name suggests, is after the golden nose of Chipotle, a pre-Hispanic relic the entire festival is built around. And without it, Dia de los Muertos is finished. Now, the golden nose can only be found using a complete map. The problem being the map is split into two, and Del Uglio is the only one that has the one half. The other half is somewhere out there with his long-lost twin brother. And then they get a look at Del Uglio under the mask.
Ew.
Yeah, Billy is Del Uglio's long-lost twin brother, which raises a few questions, obviously. Does Harold often go to Mexico? And did he have a kid there? Did he lose a kid there? Did he have a fling with a Mexican woman? Is Billy actually a clone? Did Harold's questionable parenting somehow split a single child into two? I told you guys before, so many questions and so little answers. The episode never really dwells on it, so we don't really ever find out. Now, what it does mean is that Billy has the other half of the map, which means that the gang now has everything they need to either find the nose first or stop Del Uglio from getting to it. The confrontation with Del Uglio eventually comes down to Grimm, who defeats him and saves Dia de los Muertos in the process, which makes sense, honestly. I mean, it is the Day of the Dead, and Grimm is literally death, so if anyone was going to save it, I guess it had to be him. The nose is recovered, the celebration is saved, Harold has somehow found a new son he never knew about, Billy has a twin brother, everything is going great. And honestly, sometimes watching these episodes, it makes me feel like I am in the middle of a fever dream. But anyways, Mandy pockets the golden nose of Chipotle, sells it, pockets the cash, calls for her driver, and leaves. She buys her own jet with the proceeds and heads home, leaving Grimm, Billy, and Harold stranded in Mexico without a second thought. And hey, at least everyone around them is singing. Now, I guess Mandy has finally given up on needing Grimm, but it's so cold to leave all of your friends in a different country with literally no way back. But like every episode on this show, somehow in the next episode, everything is just back to the way it was. And speaking of the next episode, we have the series finale. This is the one, the very last regular episode of the entire series. The last one to air before the show ended its run on November 9th, 2007, which makes what happens in it feel a lot more weighty than your average episode. This episode is called Heartburn, and the show seems to know that, because it gives you something genuinely surprising right at the end, so stick around. It opens with Billy digging through Grimm's trunk and pulling out a camera. Grimm tells him it's an underworld true heart camera, a device that photographs the genuine essence of a person's heart and shows you who they really are on the inside. Billy thinks this sounds great and immediately starts pointing it at everyone at school without asking permission, because why wouldn't you? If I had a camera like that, I'd be pointing it at everyone who walked past me. How's your heart? You got a healthy heart? Hey, Sean, come here. Hey, Eric. I'd be like, who's dying? You could save so many people. But this is not me we're talking about. This is Billy we're talking about. He can't even tell it isn't his own camera, despite the fact that it has the word Grimm written directly on it. Mandy takes it off and starts doing her own investigation, and when she turns it on herself,
she gets the photo back showing a demonic monster staring back at her. Obviously, no surprises there. If anyone was heartless on the show, it would probably be Mandy. Seeing as how Grim is a skeleton with literally no heart, Billy gives her a little reassuring smile about it because, you know, that's the whole point of Billy and Mandy's relationship. She uses him, but cares about him. And he sticks around because he sees the good in her. Somehow. Then Mandy points the camera at Erwin. And the results genuinely shock her because Erwin's photo comes back half good and half evil. Split right down the middle. And one side of it looks disturbingly like her own heart. Erwin explains that when he was a baby, he was genuinely born evil. A proper terror right from the start. But his dad, Dick, sat him down and taught him about love and respect and friendship. And it changed him completely. Now, if you've been watching the series, you'll know Erwin has shown flashes of a much darker side on a few occasions, including straight up zombifying Ensville and brainwashing Mandy with Grimm's scythe. And this episode is the show finally pulling that thread and explaining it. But here's where it gets interesting. Because hearing Erwin's story does something to Mandy that nothing else in 6 seasons of the show has managed to do. It starts to change her. Against her own will, I might add, and very much against her preferences. She starts going warm and soft and trusting, turning into exactly the kind of person she has spent her entire life being the opposite of. It's one of her deepest fears made real, right up there with smiling and breaking reality in My Fair Mandy. And this time, nobody even is trying to make it happen. It's just Erwin's earnest little story about his dad doing it all on its own. And then this happens. They actually did it. After a whole series of Mandy thinking Erwin was the dorkiest dork in all of Dorksville, she finally lets her guard down. But soon after they kiss, Mandy snaps back to her old self, thumping Erwin, telling him his rapping sucks. And the thing is though, he likes her just the way she is, genuinely cruel, genuinely ruthless, not a warm bone in her body. That is the Mandy that he loved. Now, it's not the most conventional ending for a series finale. Some fans will tell you it's a frustrating note to go out on, but there's something quietly perfect about the fact that the show's last regular episode is essentially about Erwin seeing exactly who Mandy is, darkness and all, and choosing her anyways. Who am I kidding? I want to go out on a big fight or Grim finally being free and deciding to stick around, but that's just always been this show, hasn't it? Always keeping you on the edge of your seat, never knowing what's going to happen next. And I'll be honest with you, considering that this is the show of the abnormal, I didn't really expect them to end on such a human, normal note. And that's season 5 and 6, and the end of the road. That's the whole show. The top rated episodes of one of the greatest shows of all time. And it's genuinely insane how Maxwell Adams and his team somehow snuck all of these incredible moments past the Cartoon Network exec team, who, as we covered in the cancellation video, would later decide this was the wrong tone for the network. Some days I am still thoroughly convinced these guys just weren't paying attention, and thank God for that. For 6 years, spanning 80 episodes and multiple specials, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy made its mark on every kid who grew up watching Cartoon Network in the mid-2000s, to the point where almost 20 years later, it's arguably more popular than ever. Adams does not get the credit he deserves. The execs who fired him don't get the blame they deserve, and the show itself is aged like the gold standard cartoon that I called it at the beginning of this video. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to check out more deep dives on the channel, I have a ton like that. But if you want to see more stuff like this, going through the top rated episodes of a specific show, let me know in the comment section below, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Later.